return guest today, Allan Knight. Allan is a former Zen monk and now is a communicator coach. Um, he graduated he has a master's degree in education from McGill University and has over 25 years of experience in helping people to empower their communication skills from the inside out. And
Very
we all
important.
know, right? And from the inside out approach is really the sustainable and long lasting approach. Allan is also the author of Mind Gone Wild, Finding Freedom Within Chaos. How appropriate is it? Right? Without further ado, I'm going to bring Allan Knight onto the screen. Allan, thank you so much.
Michelle, how are you? You're so perky and so alive and so fun to be with. But we didn't make it. The last session didn't work, right? So we needed to do it again.
Yeah, the technology is always a challenge. Well, it's one of the obstacles in life that we learn to overcome and, actually become master of it. And
I think given what's going on in the world, this is pretty easy peasy.
Right. So thank you so much for coming back. So why don't you tell us about your background living as a Zen monk? Because that was one of my biggest thing when I saw your profile, when I visit your website. Yeah.
It's funny, I'm getting on as a guest on a lot of podcasts, and they're all intrigued by my life as a Zen monk. And what I tell people, given what we're going through with the coronavirus, is that I have a little bit of an edge because the 9 years I lived as a monk was like being in 9 years of self-isolation. So I learned to live and use the tools and techniques I was taught in order to remain in the present moment with the freedom, irrespective of what was going on around us. In that case, there was nothing much going around us. So when this coronavirus hit Toronto, which is usually a very busy city, for the first couple of days, it was surreal to all of us. But then I realized, hey, I feel like home because it's quiet out there. I like it. And of course, I take a lot of responsibility for my own mindset. So in a way, I feel pretty good, but I feel sad that a lot of people are going through their loneliness and isolation, and I do what I can to help out.
Mm-hmm. You brought up a good point, because as a Zen monk, you do live in a very regular routine, and there's set schedule, and you get up in certain time, you go to bed, and there's not really much of interaction. What was it like to be in that lifestyle?
Well, I think there's two separate feelings I've had. On one hand, I felt amazing because when I first became a monk, my mind was so out of control. It was so busy, so negative, that I didn't even know if there was anything more than my own physical body or rational mind. That's part of why I became a monk. I wanted to experience deep, deep level of inner peace that most of us look for. And so when I started meditating, I started to experience more and more clarity of mind, inner peace. However, why I left being a monk, aside from the fact that I missed women too much, is that I realized that to be free, you need to integrate that into every aspect of your life. You can't just be away in some location away from the world forever. That's why I developed a program that teaches people how to attain that same inner freedom, but within the North American lifestyle, within our day-to-day life. But living as a monk was partly great because I felt a lot of clarity of mind and inner peace. But at the same time, on an emotional level, I felt that I was missing out on something. And that's why my destiny was to learn what I learned from that experience and then integrate the Zen into our fast-paced, busy world. And to me, that's the highest level of Zen, because it's easy to go off in a cave and meditate and be calm. But how do you remain calm within our busy lifestyles? And how do you remain calm and clear within such a thing as a coronavirus, which is unprecedented what we're experiencing around the world? And so for me, I take every step as a challenge to stay free and stay at peace.
Mm-hmm. And I think you brought up a very interesting concept. For many people, they know that, you know, doing meditation and doing these practices and having that strong mindset really help with that clarity and bringing us back to ground. And people associate, well, practicing meditation will keep me grounded, keep me calm. But it's where that connection between being grounded and bringing it into our everyday life and actually practicing it. What do you think is the number one reason why people are holding back in terms of putting what they know to their action and being able to achieving what they know?
It's a great question. And that's part of why when I left being a monk, I dedicated myself to create a training program, a system that would help people master themselves from the inside out. Because here's the deal. You can meditate temporarily, 1 to 2, count your breath for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and temporarily get in a state of calmness. That's very doable, very possible. However, as human beings, we have emotions. Many of us have emotional, psychological crap from the past that's still living in our inner body. Some of us lack confidence. Some of us are insecure, have social anxiety. So if you meditate for 2 hours and feel great, but you're insecure socially, then I go to a party and I meet someone that I'm really attracted to and my knees are shaking and I can't even speak because I'm freezing up. I'm no longer living in the Zen zone. So what I've discovered is that you've got to combine the spirit with the person. And the person has a mind, the person has emotions, the person has a body, the person has social connections, and you need to deal with all of it. And I would say the number one thing holding most people back is that most people are so hard on themselves and so self-critical that they don't have the self-confidence and the assertiveness and the belief in themselves to go out there and achieve the kind of lifestyle they want to achieve. And that has very little to do with meditation. It has to do more with the human side of who we are.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I put the two together.
Mm-hmm. And I totally agree with you. And when you speak about that pretty much just negativity, that self-talk that we all experience, that's right up my alley. And I completely agree with you. That's really the key factor of why we're not connecting, you know, what we know into the action. And some of us, you know, we actually talk about meditation. I know this is good for me. I should be doing more of meditation. I should read more books. But yet, you know, when it comes to action, it's about that self-talk and what's going on inside. It's so busy. And I know you have this something called 9-step process. Can you tell us more about the 9-step process that you have?
Yeah, I was just going to say one thing about what you just said, which I totally agree with, is that I used to when I was meditating, I used to try to teach people meditation. And one of my best friends, I was so desiring that she learn how to meditate, and I taught her how to meditate, and she got worse. She got more angry. The more she meditated, the more she got angry because she had a lot of anger and resentment in her. That's why it's got to be a 9-step system, not a 1-step system. So the 9 steps is simply, the first 7 steps are really inner fitness. They're all about empowering yourself. It's all about accepting, respecting, adoring yourself like your own child. And you go through a series of, number 2 has to do with letting go of the negative past. So I teach people certain, what I call zap the past exercises that help to neutralize some of that emotional, psychological, I call it turbulence, that gets in the way of the Zen, living in the Zen zone. Then number 3, once you've let go some of the inner infection, number 3 is all about vision. It's about purpose. It's about knowing who you are and having an attitude that nothing is going to get me off track from living my dream lifestyle. And then number 4, which is one of the most important parts of the 9 steps, is I call it tapping into your inner power, inner fitness. And I teach people 3 or 4 very important inner fitness exercises to help people get in that Zen zone, transform any negative beliefs into positive, channel your emotions from sadness, depression, insecurity, fear into passion, enthusiasm, and loving feelings. And then by teaching them the emotional, psychological fitness exercises and tapping into the Zen zone, now their inner world is stronger and stronger, ready to achieve what the vision is in number 3. So 2, 3, and 4 are very important foundation of the 9 steps.
Mhm. Okay. And you know, what would be the benefit of doing all this? I mean, we talked about concept, we talked about meditation, we talked about how to, you know, letting go of what's happening in the past and reconnecting ourselves to what's going on now from within. But what would be the benefit of it? And I think a lot of people are still really attached to, if I want something, what is the outcome that I'm going to get? And they focus on, you know, what can this do for me rather than what's really available and how this can completely transform their life. Their focusing is really to the result rather than the whole process. And we're talking about a process that can bring them there.
Well, I think related to that, I don't make any illusions. I don't believe everybody's teachable. I don't focus on people that are not really open to transform themselves. I know what I do. I help people to communicate with confidence, clarity, and impact, whether it's in their business relationships, in their personal relationships, attracting a soulmate, could be whatever, from the inside out. And they learn pretty quickly that if they're going to master their communication, 80%, if not more, I believe, of our relationship building skills and success comes from the inside out. So sooner or later, people have to realize the key is the inside. Now, if somebody wants to bypass that or not believe in that, then they may not resonate with the kind of work I or you do. I don't know. But all I know is that most of the people I work are open to growth. They have to be open. They have to be humble enough to realize that if my life is going to change, if I'm going to attract my true soulmate, if I'm going to increase my business performance or sales performance, it's going to come by confidence, compassion, enthusiasm, and all the wonderful qualities. Well, most of that comes from how you feel about yourself. So if you don't work on yourself, you're only giving people 40 or 50% of your very best in relationships. And that's not going to work very well. That's going to be mediocrity. But just to answer your question again, your core question is, I'm not here to work with anybody. I'm here to work with people who are motivated to work on their personal development process.
Yeah. And if we were to say apply this 9-step process to our current situation of someone who say they may be staying home, they have to work from home. There's a lot of things that's going on around them. That maybe they have kids in the family, maybe they're surrounded by a lot of noise. Maybe, you know, finance would become an issue, and they're sitting home, and there's tremendous amount of stress and anxiety arising from within them. How do we go about applying those 9-step process in those situations?
You know, it's a good question. I think that whether we're single or whether we have 3 kids, we always have the freedom to make decisions in our life. There are people that are single that are home now that have no responsibilities. They don't have 3, 4, or 5 kids on top of them, but they distract themselves on social media and just get into fantasy land, some of them. So not everybody, whether you're alone or not, is not the issue. What's at issue is, do I want to live my life fully? And if I do, I'm going to find a time, come hell or high water, to take some quality time with myself, because everything starts with me, whether I have 3 kids or no kids. I don't have kids, but every day I do my inner fitness exercise. Why? Because I want to get in the zone. I want to feel good. I want to feel clear-minded, so that now I could take myself into my daily activities and into my daily communication. So the key is to take, even if it's a small amount of quality time, we do have responsibilities for sure, but own it, empower yourself, take charge, have some boundaries. A lot of people don't have boundaries for themselves, and they don't have boundaries in their communication with others. They're too worried about what others think. So it comes to the point where finally we have to get fed up with mediocrity, fed up with letting life pass us by. Within our conditions, we're going to do whatever it takes to take some quality time for us, and then let that ripple effect into all the relationships around us. I would say we need to get fed up with mediocrity first and foremost.
Yeah, I can completely relate to that, because I was at one point, and you know, I'm fed up with being just enough, right? And I think a lot of people, I actually wrote a post this morning about being enough. And most people would just settle for being enough. And we never really truly stepping out of just being enough. And how about you could be more than enough? How about you actually take ownership of being more than enough? So it's about stepping out of the mediocrity that we settle ourselves in.
Yeah, and I think it's important as coaches and helpers that there are people that maybe intellectually know that they could get out of mediocrity, but they're not committed enough. That's why I say they're not, I don't work with people unless they're somewhat fed up. They're fed up with the gig, I want to change. Because some people like it, are more comfortable with not getting fed up so that they don't have to make the changes they need to make.
Because change is scary. Like any changes in life is scary. I think having a Zen approach, it really tap into perhaps a little bit of the Buddhism mentality, where change is the inevitable things in our life, and change is actually the nature of how our life goes. So for someone to actually accept change and seeing change as a natural process, that in itself is a scary part. So
Well,
what would be an important tip that you can share in dealing with change?
well, that's interesting because when I go back to my monk experience and my meditation, meditation is a kind of a death. It's a surrender. It's a death to your ego because the kind of meditation I practice, I counted my breathing 1 to 10, 1 to 10, 1 to 10 over and over again. And as you do that, you let go some of the thoughts you have, let go of the feelings. You surrender to something bigger, a higher, let's call it a higher self, your vortex, your Zen zone. I don't really care what you call it.
Mm-hmm.
The more you achieve that freedom, you realize you could live in that state almost all of the time. So, but where we go off track is we get so easily distracted into our attachments. Like right now, just think about it. On a global scale, people have stripped away. When I go outside, the planes are on the tarmac. There's nobody, hardly anyone on the street. Nobody's going to any sports. No one's going to restaurants. It's almost like we live in a Zen meditation hall. We've had it stripped away. And in some ways, maybe it's the universe's way of waking up a lot of people. So what I would say is, now that we've got more time on our hands, what a great opportunity to say, maybe I need to make some changes. Let me do some self-reflection. It may or may not include meditation right away, but it could include, how would I want to change my life going forward? Maybe I want to spend more quality time with my family. Maybe I need to get rid of some relationships that are not serving me well. Maybe I'm distracting myself with too much time on social media. Maybe I need to learn how to put my phone away for an hour or two a day and look at someone in the eyes and have a real conversation for the first time in 20 years. These are the kind of things that could be very, very helpful for people to utilize.
Yeah. And I think what stood out for me was the word surrender. And I think, surrender meaning, it doesn't mean that, you just passively give up and not do anything with life, or not pursuing your goal or your dream. Surrender really means that accepting what's happening now, and, really truly owning what your gift and talent is. And again, having that clarity in moving forward in the direction.
Yeah, it's a good point, because like the surrender to me, and when I talked about that, in meditation, if you want to achieve a high level of consciousness or clarity, you need to surrender initially. Once you've surrendered and tapped into your inner power, then it's not just surrendering yourself all the time. It's taking good action, communicating with people, being bold, being assertive, being confident, going back, surrendering again, filling up the gas tank, then going out into the world. That's why I took a holistic approach of the 9 steps, not just one step of meditation, because it's not just about surrendering all day and all night and all day and all night. I don't know. Oh.
And some people get stuck on that. I know people who have been practicing meditation, they've been practicing the surrender, they've been practicing acceptance, and they get stuck taking this surrender and knowing what they know into action.
I have a funny story to tell you about
Yeah, please.
my monkhood, because I was very big, not just on meditation, but chanting. I do a lot of chanting,
Mhm.
and chanting is a repetitive chant. It's a verbal way to get in the zone. And there's the story of this great master who was getting old, almost dying, and he had all these books in the back of him. And when he was about to die, all his disciples was around him, and he died, and they all went for all the books. They wanted to see what he wrote in the books. And every page was the Tibetan chant, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme. That's all the books were filled with.
Mhm.
The point being that we have this tendency in the Western culture to put the rational mind as the ultimate goal, thinking, reading, explaining. Knowledge is power. Well, knowledge is power if we want to become doctors, but knowledge is not power if we want to become self-masterful and communicate effectively. Inner peace is power. Compassion is power. Patience is power. Presence of mind is power. And along the way, some knowledge could help, but it's the opposite, simplicity. So that's why he was there to teach his disciples, just get in the zone, and let God lead you day by day.
Mhm.
That's why I just show up and walk with God. That's what I do every day.
That's beautifully said. And I kind of wanted to bring us back to you being a communication coach. How does all this tie back to the communication? What is communication?
Well, communication really, I mean, the reality is I'm more of an inner fitness and communication coach. What I mean by it is that ultimately, when I was looking at the whole self-development world, I said, what do I want to teach? And when I started to ponder the 9 steps, I wanted to make sure that I integrated and connected self-development with communication, because I felt that everywhere I go, life coaching, personal development, it's just about the self. But a huge part of our lives are connecting with other people. And I knew that I had communication skills. So why I say communication coach is that if we want to live our desired lifestyles, most of us have to deal with people every day, both business and personal. I've got 3 people contacted me yesterday. What do I do to meet my soulmate? Well, that's all about connecting and attracting the kind of person you want. And then my message is the same. If you want to do that, let's look at how you're doing in your life. And I take them through an assessment and an x-ray. And I say, look at all the things holding you back. Most of them are inner. So that's why I say, in order to communicate, but yet your life, most of our lives are dealing with connecting with people personally and professionally.
Mm-hmm.
So once they see that the energy that you portray day to day, moment by moment, not just glimpses of it, if you live in a state of accepting, loving, adoring yourself, where you walk around like a ball of fire, a ball of love, a love machine, I call it, then that unconditional love is radiating out. You're going to meet wonderful, you're going to have heart-centered soulmates of different kinds, of friends, soulmates, business soulmates, but ultimately most people are looking for that romantic soulmate. Well, that will come organically if you work on yourself very easily. If you don't, you're destined to be alone or in dysfunctional relationships. So that's why I put a heavy emphasis on communication.
Yeah. Yeah, I absolutely agree. And everything in the world is based on it's a relationship. It's how we relate to others and also how we relate to ourselves. And that whether or not we have that ability to, or that, the ability to really connect within ourselves, it really will show up in terms of how we are able to connect with others. And
well, look, I lived like a monk for 9 years, and I thought I was such a highly developed person. And then when I came back into the world and I went on dating experiences, I started to interview the woman in 5 minutes to say, how come you're interviewing me? And I saw that I had insecurities and fears and all kinds of that were never dealt with just by getting into the spirit and meditating. So that's why I keep going back like a broken record. It's got to be a holistic approach that deals with all facets of who we are.
Mm-hmm. So in relation to what's going on right now, what would be one piece of recommendation that you can leave with the audience today?
I would say that observe your mind. Observe your mind. Observe how often do you go into a state of negativity? How often do you get into a state of judgmentalness of the people around you? How often do you get in a state of fear and panic over the virus situation and get preoccupied with what the media is talking about? And try to catch yourself. This is where it starts. This is where connecting with ourselves. We talk about staying 6 feet away, Michelle. We talk about social distancing, which is not social distancing, it's actually physical distancing. Right now, we got good social stuff going on between you and I.
Yeah.
So there's a physical distancing between us. How about looking at another kind of distancing? The media doesn't talk about that. Distance ourselves from the inner infections and viruses that we're day by day allowing in to our minds. Because even if you socially distance from other people, you still have your own thoughts and your own feelings going on inside. How are you doing with that? Are you grabbing onto those viruses and infections and obsessing on them? That's not going to do you any good. And social distancing won't be enough because your immune system will be broken down. So it's also very important for us to distance ourselves from our own negativity. That would be my first main recommendation for people.
Yeah. And I think it's a great and important one because, if we're not dissociating ourselves from our own negative self-talk or negativity, then that can actually bring our immune system down, which put us in a higher risk of catching the virus. So everything is all tied in together. And, I think it's really important for people to realize too that you are not alone. If you're happening to watching this as a replay or you're watching this live, you are not alone. And Allan and I are both coach, and this is what we do professionally, and we love to, help and support people. So you are not in the world alone. And there's always your friends and family someone that you trust, you can go to and express those inner thoughts, ideas that you may have to the current situation.
And the other, I totally agree. And I think it's time that people also see, because of the time we're living in, I don't take life for granted. I'm here, I'm doing a show with you in my bedroom, for God's sake. It's simple, it's where I'm at, but I'm happy. And I'm happy and I'm grateful to wake up. I'm grateful that I'm breathing. I'm grateful that I'm on talking with you and having a wonderful conversation with you and knowing that you're helping a lot of people and I'm helping a lot of people. And more importantly, we're helping people, not so much a lot of people, but whoever we help, that's huge. And we can help people, inspire them. If we turn lemon into lemonade, if we take this experience and walk the talk of staying in the zone and staying in a loving state, how important that is for the world to experience right now. That's the way I'm looking at it.
Yeah. Allan, thank you so much for coming. We have a couple of minutes left. Can you tell us where people can find you?
Yeah, my website is allanknight.com. By the way, anybody that emails me at Allan if you go to allanknight.com and you put your information on the contact page, I'll send you a free copy of my book in e-format of Mind Gone Wild, Finding Freedom Within the Chaos. You can also check out Soulmate Revolution, which is a new landing page for people who want to track their soulmate. We have some interesting tools and techniques related to that. And the last thing I'll say is if anyone out there would love to be a coach but doesn't have an existing program, I have a certification coaching program, and my real goal is to help train as many younger people that want to be a coach but don't have a program. So check it out, and would love to have a conversation with you if you're interested in that.
Yeah.
That's how they get in touch with me, Michelle.
That's how they can get closer to you.
Not too close, not too close.
This is 6 feet away.
It's virtually very close, but physically 6 feet.
I always find that, our connection is really beyond physical. So I never saw physical distancing as a challenge, because I feel that many of us, the fact that we're sitting here and talking and speaking to each other, having a great conversation, is the fact that, all of us are actually came from one source. And the reason why we're from one source is because we have that ability to relate to each other. We have the ability to feel for each other, and we're here, and what you feel, I also feel, and I see you, I hear you. And there's a new meditation phrase that I've learned. It's called the Ho'opono Ono. It's I love you, thank you, I'm sorry, and I always forget the last one. The universe don't want me to. Oh, please forgive me.
Well, I think it's great. I mean, first of all, the work that you're doing is great. I appreciate you having me on. I mean, one of the reasons I just recently launched the Soulmate Revolution is it was always my dream to help facilitate bringing soulmates together. And it starts with the inner soulmate. And I realized we were living in a time of isolation, fear, loneliness. I thought, you know what, I'm going to start it now. And so that brings me a lot of joy when I see people connecting. But the interesting thing is when you get to the place that you're talking about and I'm talking about, you no longer have that emotional clause and neediness to have a relationship. If you're alone, you feel great. If you're in a great relationship, it's a big bonus, but it's not needful because we don't own anybody, including our own soulmate. So when you're in a state of freedom like that, it makes everything. The intimacy that you have with each other is more of an emotional, spiritual intimacy than physical. If physical happens with one person or a few people or whatever, that's fine. But I love the fact that I have emotional intimacy with a number of amazing people, including you. We're like soulmates.
Soulmate revolution, ladies.
Yes, ma'am.
Yep. Thank you so much for joining me. And I will link all the information for everyone on the end of in the comment of this post. And thank you so much, Allan. It's been a pleasure. This is my second time speaking with you. It's just been, every time I speak to you, it's just very empowering, very inspiring. And also I've learned a lot. Thank you so much.
Keep up the good work, and let's do more of this together for sure.
Yes.
Take care, Michelle. Thank you.
Thank you. And everyone, join me again next week on Wednesday at 8 o'clock in the morning. And I will see everyone next. Bye.
Bye.
Yay.
Yay.